In this video, I'm going to be going over how to evaluate functions from a table, a graph, and also an equation. So taking a look, first of all, we have to understand function notation. So when we see f of x, what's inside parentheses here represents the x coordinate or the input of the function. And then what you get out is the y value or the output of the function. So anytime we see a notation like this, f of 2, this means when x is 2, what is y? So if we look at the chart here, the t-chart, we have the first value when x is 2, y is -4. So that's how we evaluate a function from a table. We look to see what is the x and what is the y value associated with it. Now, this one is the exact opposite. It's asking us if f of x is equal to -1. So this is saying we know the y value this time. The y value is -1, but we want to know what is that x value associated with that. So this time we're going to look in the f of x or the y column, and I'm looking for that value of -1. When y is -1, that means x is 8. All right, example 2 is very similar. G of 6, this is an x value. So I'm looking for when x is 6, y is -2. When x is 12, y is -7. We can also evaluate from a graph. Again, we just have to remember how function notation works. So if I look at this particular example, it says f of -4. So that means when x is -4, I want to know what is y. So if I look at the graph, x being -4, I would move left 4 units. And then I have to figure out where does the graph touch the y value for that particular point. So when x is -4, y is 2. We have to rise 2 in order to get to that point. So this point right here would have the coordinate -4, 2. So when x is -4, y is 2. This next one is asking us when x is 0, what is y? So in order to get to an x value of 0, I'm just not moving left or right. I'm staying right at the origin. And I see that that y value is also 0 because the point on the graph is at 0, 0. So the y value is also 0 there. When x is 2, that means I'm going to move right 2. This time to get to my function, I have to move down 2. So that point has the coordinate 2, -2. So when x is 2, y is -2. And again, we can find x values for particular y values. So again, this equation here says f of x. We don't know what the x value is. That's what we're trying to find. But the y value is 2. So what x value would give me a y value of 2? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 2 units on the y-axis, and I'm going to see where does the graph intersect anywhere where y is 2. Notice there's actually 2 points on this graph where there's 2 different x's that would give me the same y value. We actually evaluated one earlier. We were given the x value of -4 and it gave us a y value of 2. So x could be -4. But then also there's a second point right here where the y value is also 2. So that point has the coordinate. It looks like it's not quite at -1. So I'm going to guess maybe like -0.8 to, I'm guessing at this point because it doesn't look like it quite hits at that corner, but it's really close to it. So it's somewhere in between 0 and -1. I'm guessing that it's -8, or 0.8 rather, at this point. Okay, so this kind of shows the need to have an equation for a graph to fully evaluate values, especially when they don't meet at those whole number values or integers. Okay, so if we have an equation, we can evaluate functions using equations as well. Again, remembering that function notation, the number inside the parentheses always represents x. So I'm plugging 5 in for x. So if I substitute, this would say f of x is equal to, I'm substituting 5 in for x, and 5 plus 7, that means f of x, or y, equals 12. So when x is 5, y is 12. Similarly, if I plug in -3 into g's function here, it would say 3 times -3 minus 8. Order of operations, we want to make sure we multiply first. So that would be -9 minus 8, and that would give me a y value of -17. All right, the next equation, we're substituting 9 into h's function. So this would say 2/3 times 9 minus 1. To evaluate 2/3 of 9, that would be -6 minus 1, which is -7. I'm substituting for the next function -4 in for x. So this function would say -4 squared minus -4. Okay, so let's be really careful with signs here. When we square a negative times a negative would make a positive value. So we have +16 minus a negative also means plus, minus a negative is plus 4. And so if we evaluate 16 plus 4, it's going to give me a y value of 20. All right, the next example, we have f of 5. I'm sorry, my computer is lagging a little bit here. Okay, so if I substitute in +5 for x, be careful on this. This -1 in front of x squared sometimes causes some sign issues for students. So make sure if you want to write in that -1, that's fine. Make sure we're just plugging in the 5 for the x. So that negative sign is technically outside of those parentheses this time. Plus 6 times 5 minus 4. Okay, if I evaluate that, order of operations, we must do the exponent first. So 5 squared would be 25. At this point, I'm just going to pull everything else down so I can really emphasize these order of operations here. So we do exponents first. The next step, we should take care of any multiplying. So -1 times 25 is -25. 6 times 5 is 30. So that our last step is any adding and subtracting from left to right here. So -25 plus 30 would be +5 minus 4. That would give me a +1 for that y value. So when x is 5, y is 1. All right, the last example, we have to evaluate an absolute value function here. We're plugging in -7 for x. So this function would say the absolute value of -7 minus -7 squared. So absolute value signs act like parentheses. So I want to evaluate anything that's inside those absolute value signs first, and then take the absolute value of my answer. So again, order of operations, super important here. We're going to simplify that exponent first. So -7 squared would be positive 49. -7 times -7 is positive 49. I'm going to pull everything else down. So we would have -7 minus positive 49, and that's still inside absolute value at this point. Okay, I'm now going to combine the -7 minus 49. That's going to give me -56. And if we take the absolute value of -56, oh, sorry guys, my pen is not writing where I want it to right now. Okay, that absolute value sign should be on the outside of that negative. So the absolute value of -56 would give me a positive 56, and that would be my final answer to this problem. I can't seem to write that right now. So positive 56.